Have you ever noticed that some leaders can get people to instantly trust them with almost no effort? Warren Buffett does this better than anyone because he's just using simple rules to make you feel at ease. In this video, I'll show you these rules that Buffett uses to get people to trust him without being the world's greatest speaker, and how you could use them in your own leadership. The first one is easy to miss, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Warren Buffett never sounds like he's fighting for trust. That's unusual because the second that many leaders speak to a group, they slip into presentation mode, a little more polished, a little more careful, a little more, let me prove to you that I belong here. You can hear the performance start, and the harder that someone works to sound credible, the more you start wondering why. Buffett does the opposite. He doesn't sound like he's trying to win you over. He just sounds like he's chatting about something that he knows inside and out. Rule 1 is Warren Buffett never sounds like he's performing expertise. He sounds like he's explaining something that matters. Many leaders try to sound smart or impressive. Buffett sounds like a man who knows he's holding on to other people's money and their future, and that it's all in his hands. Trust doesn't rise when you sound impressive. Trust rises when you sound responsible. Buffett sounds like he's leveling with you. He then follows a second rule that's just as powerful. He does something that most leaders avoid, like a tax audit. He talks about mistakes. Many leaders think that trust comes from looking polished, like nothing ever slips. So when something goes wrong, they blur it. They rename it. They wrap it in language so gentle it could put a grizzly bear to sleep. It wasn't a mistake. It was a misalignment. It wasn't a bad call. It was an unforeseen challenge. It wasn't a mess. It was a dynamic learning environment. At that point, you're not leading. You're doing PR for your ego. But Buffett does the opposite. In his shareholder letters, he uses the word mistake and error plainly. And he's even said when companies refuse to use those words, it should make you nervous. The moment people feel like you're sanding down reality, trust drops. They start thinking, if he's polishing this, what else is he polishing? Buffett doesn't confess dramatically. He doesn't over-apologize. He just names the mistake clearly and keeps moving. And that's why it works. It singles one thing, and that's rule 2, accuracy over appearance. A lot of leaders think that admitting mistakes weakens authority. And it does if you sound shaky or self-protective. But a clear admission does the opposite. It says, I see reality. I'm not hiding from it, and I don't need to distort it to protect my image. The weak leader says, let me make this sound better. The trusted leader says, let me make this clear and understandable. And once people trust your honesty, they start trusting your judgment. And that's where Buffett is lethal. He takes on complex things and makes them feel obvious. Many people think that complexity makes them sound smart. So when the stakes go up, their language goes up with it. More jargon, more caveats, more framing, more words doing the work that clarity should have done for free. Buffett takes ideas involving billions of dollars and explains them like he's talking to one intelligent person across the table. In one talk, he gives students a simple thought experiment.
Play along with me in a little game for just a second. For a moment that I granted you the right to buy 10% of one of your classmates for the rest of his or her lifetime. Which one are you going to pick among all your classmates as for the one you want to own 10% of? And then I would throw in a hooker. I would say as part of owning 10% of this person, you had to agree to go short 10% of somebody else in the class.
Suddenly, judgment and character aren't abstract. You could picture them. And that's a massive signal, because when someone can explain complexity simply, you assume they actually understand it. When someone keeps making simple things sound complicated, you start to wonder if they understand it at all, or if they're hiding behind some kind of verbal smoke. Leaders need to hear this. One of the fastest ways to lose trust in a meeting is to make people work too hard to understand you. If your team needs a Sherpa just to follow your point, that's not executive presence. That's a hostage situation with corporate vocabulary. Buffett understands the deeper rule, rule 3, clarity creates confidence. If you want people to trust you faster, Don't ask, how do I make this sound smarter? Ask, how do I make this easier for them to understand and hold in their minds? Because Buffett's simplicity isn't style, it's proof. And once you see that, the next rule becomes even more powerful. Buffett has made the room feel like he's telling the truth clearly. Now the next rule is rule 4. He tells you what he thinks. Not a cloud of possibilities, not 17 qualifiers, not the corporate weather report, 40% chance of accountability today. He just puts a stake in the ground. In his University of Florida talk, Buffett says, you ought to buy businesses you understand. It's not complicated. That's not a presentation. That's a clear view. And what's powerful isn't that Buffett is certain about everything. He isn't. It's that when he has a view, you can actually hear it. A lot of leaders do the opposite. They bury the point under so much softness that by the end, nobody knows if a decision got made or they just applied moisturizer to that opinion. Buffett is willing to sound decided. Trust rises when people can hear your actual view, not just your thinking process. Not certainty about everything, just visible clarity about what you believe is true. Now, rule 5 is a bit tricky. Humor. Humor is where things can fall apart because a lot of leaders here use humor and turn it into a coworker who thinks that every quarterly review needs a high five.
High five.
That's not what Buffett does. Buffett's humor isn't to grab the spotlight. It's there to take the stiffness out. Because even when a leader is clear and honest and willing to make a judgment, there's still one obstacle to trust: tension. Buffett knows how to lower that tension without becoming performative. At Berkshire's 2025 annual meeting, he thanks Tim Cook and says that Cook has made Berkshire more money than Buffett himself has. It gets a laugh. But notice what the joke signals. Buffett is comfortable enough not to protect his status every second. He's not posturing. He's lowering the temperature. That's why it works. It's light, self-aware, and safe. Used well, humor removes distance. It makes a powerful person easier to approach and a hard truth easier to hear. Most bad leadership humor has the wrong goal, trying to dominate the room and force likability. Buffett uses humor like a pressure valve, just enough levity to make the room exhale. Humor builds trust when it reduces distance, not when it asks for applause. And when you combine that with plain speech, clear judgment, and visible honesty, you get the final effect Buffett creates better than almost anyone. And this last one matters because all the traits we've talked about stick together into something bigger. Not just honesty, not just clarity, not just humor, and overall feeling. In a moment, we'll create a framework to apply these rules. But first, when most people are under pressure, even when they say the right words, you could still feel the strain. They're trying to hold the room, protect the moment, and make sure nothing slips, and the audience feels it. They think, this person knows a lot, but they don't always think this person is solid. Buffett creates that second feeling, not because he's intense or dominant or executive polished. He sounds hard to shake. He sounds solid. The plain language, the clear admissions, the direct judgments, the light humor together create one impression. Rule 6, Warren Buffett sounds durable. He doesn't sound like he's bending reality in real time. He's not scrambling to make the truth prettier. He's not padding every sentence in case someone disagrees. He stays in contact with reality, even when it's inconvenient. And that's what people trust, not just intelligence or charm, durability. Because underneath your words, your team is always asking a deeper question. What happens to this person when things get difficult? Do they get vague, defensive? Do they start negotiating with the facts? Buffett rarely gives you that feeling. He gives you the sense that the market can change, the situation can change, but he won't become unrecognizable under the pressure. And that's the real trust signal. Everyone relaxes when they believe that you're not going to panic, posture, or perform your way through uncertainty. Many leaders think that trust is built by looking strong and in good moments. But a lot of trust is built by looking steady in unclear moments. People trust you more when your communication feels steady enough to survive pressure. That's durability. And once you understand that, you could finally ask the most useful question in the whole video. How do you actually do this yourself? Without cosplaying Warren Buffett, of course. You don't copy the man, you copy his signals. Here are 4 things you can do immediately. 1. Open with orientation, not performance. Many leaders start Important meetings with warm-up talk. Buffett starts by placing the room on the map. 2. Trade jargon for ordinary analogies. Buffett makes complex things visual. Most leaders do the opposite. They add vocabulary until the idea needs a life jacket to survive. Ask, what's one normal image that makes this easier to picture? 3. Say what you know, what you don't, and what you're watching. This is instant credibility because it signals reality, not ego. Here's what we know, here's what we don't know yet, and here's what I'm watching before the next call. And 4, name mistakes clearly, then move. Don't drown out reality with corporate perfume. Say what happened, correct it, then move forward. Because the faster people sense you protect the truth more than your image, the faster they trust you. And that's the practical version. Orient the room, make it visual, tell the truth about uncertainty, and own mistakes. That's how you borrow Buffett's trust signals without impersonating Buffett. Now, Buffett isn't exactly the world's best orator. In fact, many top leaders may not be the most polished presenters, like Elon Musk. But I think Elon is doing it, in part, intentionally. Find out why next.